Okay, so if I asked you throughout the last 200 years or 300 years, or really just forever, uh, which country was richer, England or Ireland, there would be only one right answer, and you would probably be able to give it. And the correct answer would be England. It's historically been richer than Ireland, at least since the Industrial Revolution started, and all the way up until like I want to say 10 years ago. Like there's never been like it's always been the Irish that have been leaving, and they've been leaving, well, part of them at least going into the UK, but also pretty much everywhere else around the world, Australia more recently, America historically as well. The Irish people, the Irish Republic, or the country of Ireland, or the island of Ireland, whatever, before any specific country was formed, is has not historically been known for being rich, or wealthy, or well off. And well, there was the famine in the 1840s and 50s, and to this day, there's less people living in Ireland right now than like 200 years ago or 150 years ago. I think it was like something like it got up to 8 million or 9 million, and now it's around 5. And that's because it's been growing again. So, like, Ireland has not historically been a good place to live. I'm not gonna get into why that is. I don't care if you believe whether that's because it was Catholic, or because it was oppressed, or because of colonial. I don't care. Like, I honestly don't care. But if you Google right now, which country is richer, the UK or Ireland, Google Meta, like the analysis, like the AI thing, they will say undoubtedly that it's Ireland. And most websites now, that when you Google, they'll say it's Ireland as well. And obviously, a lot of people have heard about Irish GDP being inflated, let's call it that, which is at least partially true, right? Ireland has been a tax haven for a long time now, at least since the 80s, though they denied that, and the companies that use them denied that. But if you just define tax haven as a jurisdiction that is friendly towards companies in a way that makes them, let's say, twist their operations a little bit so as to take advantage of the tax or bureaucracy or regulation systems in that jurisdiction, then objectively, that's where Ireland is. And some of the largest companies in the world, like Apple and Google, they have some sort of relationship with Ireland, and some would argue some pretty close relationship with Ireland. And most of the videos I see on the internet about this subject is about like how it's all fake, and how the Irish, it didn't trickle down to the Irish people, and the Irish people are not as well off, and there clearly is a rental problem in Dublin. And don't get me wrong, like I have a lot of friends in Ireland because I have a lot of friends in Ireland. Not all of them are Irish, some of them are, and all of them would tell me about the absurd rental prices. There's some people who went to Ireland who told me, "Oh, I thought it would be hard to get a job and easy to find a rental, but it was exactly the opposite. I found a job in 2 days, and then it took me weeks to find a rental." And that's like a real struggle in the Irish people. But if you just look objectively, Ireland is just come from being Eastern European level poor, pretty much. Maybe not as much because he wasn't properly communist, but like definitely the worst of Western Europe, the worst west of, like, I don't know, Austria, let's say, or Poland, let's say, to being arguably the second or third best country in the European Union to live. If you discount Switzerland, like Ireland has already got pretty much the highest GDP per capita in the world. I know, you know what you're gonna say, but bear with me. It's got one of the highest GDP per capita in the world, which is not something anyone would have even thought of saying in, let's say, 1981 or 1970 or whatever, or any time in history. That's not what would you think. And then it's got one of the highest minimum wages in the world. I think it's, as of 2025, €13.70 an hour, which is actually more than Great Britain at this point. It's more than the UK. Probably for the first time in history. And there's talks of substituting a minimum wage with a living wage that's around 60% of median income, which would pretty much raise Ireland's minimum wage to nearly 15 euros an hour, which, if you don't realize, is actually pretty much the highest minimum wage in the European Union, second only maybe to Luxembourg. Since Ireland taxes a little less than Luxembourg in terms of individual income, Ireland might be the net highest minimum wage in Europe by next year, by 2026. Maybe as you're watching this video right now, it's already true. And that is such a crazy change. And I see Irish people traveling now. I see them coming to Australia, where I am right now. I'm in Adelaide, by the way. As I traveled Europe, I saw plenty of Irish people traveling. They had, like, you could see that they have a decent amount of disposable income. And obviously Ireland is not perfect, but to say, like, to just see the contrast between the Ireland before the 90s and the Ireland now, or even the Ireland 15 years ago and the Ireland now, to see the difference and then claim that being a tax haven didn't at least somewhat help Ireland is insane. Their debt keeps falling every year. Their debt to GDP went from over 100% to being now what, under 40, 35? I don't even know exactly what it is. 48? I don't care. It's much lower than most of Europe. It's got budget surpluses pretty much every year. It's going to start a wealth fund now. And yeah, pretty much one of the highest average wages in the world, one of the highest minimum wages in the world. Like, if it does come true that it goes to 15 euros an hour, then pretty much the only countries that will have higher minimum wages than Ireland will be some portions of Switzerland, like Geneva, and some portions of Switzerland that actually do have minimum wages, because some of them don't. Maybe Luxembourg, if it's justice, but I don't think so. Australia, but just barely. And then some parts of the US, like California, for example. I think it's at $16.50 minimum wage currently. It's like some specific parts, like California, Washington, D.C., some of the West Coast, New York State. Some of them might be pretty much on par with Ireland or a little better in terms of minimum wage. And that'll be it. Ireland will objectively be one of the richest countries in the world, out of being literally a net loss migration until the 1990s. That is amazing. And the truth is, pretty much every country in Europe that's rich actually does that. Like, Switzerland is a tax haven. Would anyone say Switzerland is not actually rich? That the Swiss people aren't actually well off? I don't think so. I mean, some people would say that, but I don't think that's true. Liechtenstein, same thing. Liechtenstein, for all intents and purposes, is somewhat of a tax haven. Obviously, tax haven, again, is a gloomy kind of word. It's not Dubai. Like, there's some tax and all that, but it's a favorable jurisdiction. What are the other richest countries in Europe? Luxembourg, same thing. The Netherlands. Most people don't think of the Netherlands as a tax haven, but for the Dutch-Irish sandwich, the Dutch baht was exactly the Netherlands. So they do have favorable tax systems. Even Belgium, in a way, for certain types of businesses, very limited, has also some favorable tax policy. And you notice that, well, those just happen to be the richest countries in Europe. There's the Nordic exceptions. There's Norway because of oil, pretty much, and there's Denmark, because Denmark is just such an efficient country. Efficient government, efficient bureaucracy, efficient regulations, not that many regulations for that matter, very flexible economy, and obviously not a tax haven at all, like absurdly high taxes. But with pretty much the exception of Norway and Denmark, all the richest countries in Europe are at least somewhat tax havens. And yeah, like I said, there's this weird idea that it doesn't pay off. Oh, no, the country doesn't benefit out of being a tax haven. No, the country does benefit, and not just in terms of metrics and data and like just crazy data online, but actual people start making actually more money because of their country's decisions to be more favorable towards taxes, towards business, towards with less regulation, with more incentives, etc. And Ireland is, I think, the most direct, objective, sudden proof of that really does make a difference. And then, of course, you might wonder, what if other countries start doing that too? And as we grow into a more competitive environment, as we grow into a more, instead of a few countries, like a few hundred countries now that might be up for being competitive, we are going to see more and more discrepancies in income, I think. And that's because your decisions matter. As politicians, as a country, your decisions matter. And it takes time. Like Ireland is more free now than, let's say, I don't know, Australia, I'd say, or Canada. And wages are still like on par with Canada, a little lower than Australia. Just because that takes time, which is kind of the problem, really. Like Ireland has been mostly free for the last decades or so, but it's only now actually being regarded as rich. And the UK is kind of the opposite, really. It's been getting worse and worse, more regulated, more taxes, more burdens and everything. And only now is it being regarded as poorer than Ireland. But the situation that all those countries are now is not the results of their current policies. It's the results of their policies in the last 30 years, in the last 50 years, and in the last 100 years. And some countries, Italy, for example, Germany, France, they've been pretty much living off good decisions they made in the past. They're not good at making good decisions anymore. Shutting down nuclear plants in Germany is not a good decision. Taxing the hell out of pretty much everyone in Italy and having a stupidly paper 100-year-old bureaucracy in Italy, it's not a good idea. And so you see those countries, you see that they're still kind of well off, and you see what they do, and you try to equate, oh, what they do is why they're well off. But it's not. What they do is what's actually undermining most of their gains. You have to look to the past, and I'm saying 50 years before, 100 years before, 70 years before, 30 years before, to actually understand what put those countries in that position. And Ireland is not rich because just today Ireland just suddenly opened up. Ireland has been gradually and quietly getting richer, at least since the 80s. And it's been a multitude of good decisions that have allowed for that. And I hope they continue. Overall, I do quite well with Irish people. I like Ireland as a whole. Still wouldn't move there, mostly because of the weather. But I think every country in the world has something to learn from Ireland. I'll see you guys around.